So I wanted to make a longer video response to Angela from Parkrose Permaculture. She posted a video talking about orthorexia and how orthorexia and like pure eating has this sort of like pipeline to the alt-right. And the reason I wanted to give a response to that is because this is actually how I grew up. Let me move my phone here. Growing up, my family started out just like healthy when I was very young. And so the thing I remember most was like we didn't have breakfast cereal. My mom didn't even really make granola at that time. We ate a lot of boiled wheat for breakfast, not like cream of wheat where you take like wheat flour and cook it in water. It was just wheat kernels or wheat berries that were cooked in boiling water. And then that's what we had for breakfast. And then from there, like as my family moved around the western part of the US and then out to the south, we became vegetarian, and then we became vegan after my mom divorced. And then after we became vegan is when we moved out to the south, and we were Mormon vegan homeschoolers living in rural Virginia. And that is like exactly as fun as it sounds. People thought we were crazy just everywhere. And they weren't entirely wrong. But that veganism, so like the area we moved to was not very friendly towards Mormons. And I don't know that it still is, not any of the locals anyway. And so there was a lot of anti-Mormon sentiment going around. So when this new family moves into the area and they're like, we're homeschoolers, we're vegan, yay, they were just like, oh my gosh, you guys are going to make us look so weird. And so we ended up getting bullied a lot because of being vegan. And that bullying entrenched us into the vegan lifestyle more, for starters. But because we were so ostracized in our congregation at church because of being vegan, it pushed us and like primed us to be vulnerable to extreme groups. And one of those extreme groups was the John Birch Society when I was about 13, maybe 14 years old. Oops, sorry. My phone is like balanced on my purse while I wind yarn. When I was about 13 or 14 years old, my mom was kind of like proselytized into the John Birch Society. And because we were so ostracized in our congregation or like local group of congregations, and because we had so few friends, we were in a really vulnerable situation. And so when these people are like being nice to us and friendly and welcoming, and they don't care that we're vegan, they're like, that's cool. We don't care. That seems really nice that you guys are into healthy food. It was a really accepting environment, as cult-like environments often are. And so I spent like the last sort of half of my childhood, the portion that I can remember, in living in the John Birch Society. We would go to their chapter meetings. We would travel like an hour to go to a chapter meeting. And after a certain point, when our finances kind of stabilized, we would go to their summer camps. And it became like this exciting tradition for us every year. Not their summer camps. They like sponsored a summer camp basically. And so we went to like one in Ohio and one in Utah. And then the majority of the time, most of the time we went to this summer camp in the deep South. And I'm not going to say where it was, and I'm not going to give any more identifying information on that, just because the people who attended that camp were attending it as children and they didn't have any control over that. And they like a lot of times kids were sent to this camp because their parents thought it would like help reform them. They've got like troubled teens. They're like, they need to learn to love America, because that was always the shtick. And at summer camp, again, no one cared that we were vegan. We would like let them know ahead of time that we had special dietary needs, and the camp itself that was rented out would make sure that we had food available that we could eat. And so we were pushed into this like really, really extreme environment. And I would say, like, of the camps we went to, the one in the South was the most extreme because it had a lot of Southern sympathizer content to it. And that was interesting. Anyways, and it led us into this like extreme like Christian conservatism as well. So like because of her friends that she had made with like the John Birch Society and stuff, my mom believed that, you know, like reading Harry Potter would convert us to witchcraft and a lot of things like that. Anyways, but what started us on that path was this desire for like pure and healthy eating, this need to, you know, have this holy diet. And that's really oftentimes how it was approached in my family, is that we needed a godly diet and God wanted us to be vegan. And I didn't start breaking out of any of that. I couldn't deconstruct from the racism. I couldn't deconstruct from the conspiracy theories or anything like that. Sorry, I'm looking for my keys. Until after I served a mission for my church. Like on my mission is when I started, deconstructing the dietary restrictions and a lot of like the racial things that I had been taught. And I had such a restrictive life because like as my mom got into, not just my mom, my parents got into these like more and more extreme groups, we of course had a more and more extreme lifestyle. I wasn't even able to move out of my parents' house and get out on my own at all until after I came home from my mission. I was almost 24 and that was like a whole ordeal. But we had these just like, we got sort of pulled into like the Duggar family. I don't know if you're familiar with any of that, but they have like this Bill Gothard cult. It's all a cult thing going on. And my mom just really loved the idea of, you know, embracing every aspect of Christianity, even if it wasn't necessarily healthy. And by the time I was trying to leave home, the two things that like kind of spurred me moving out the way that I did is because I told my mom that I wouldn't be vegan and that I wasn't going to be a quote unquote stay-at-home daughter. She was convinced at that point that like my sister and I needed to be stay-at-home daughters, and she was like trying to I won't get into that. That's a different story. Anyways, but this veganism really fueled this extreme lifestyle. So when Angela talks about like the crunchy to alt-right pipeline, it's absolutely real. I grew up in it. I was raised in it. And it took me years to deconstruct and escape from.